I'm Albert Lewitton at the I-24 News headquarters in Tel Aviv. Welcome to our viewers around the world. A busy Friday, January the 19th, 2024. This is day 105 of the war. We are going to start with the South. The IDF says they found the executive producer of Palestinian Islamic Jihad's propaganda, the one responsible for hostage videos and psychological warfare videos, and eliminated him. Also, another Israeli soldier has fallen in the battle in the South. Staff Sergeant Ori Gebi, 20 years old, was from Herzliya. The death toll from the IDF is now 194. Moving on to the north, Lebanese media report that the IDF has hit some 10 targets in South Lebanon this morning. And there's word coming out of Lebanon that the United States put out a proposal on the table. The deal on the table: Israel scales back in Gaza, and in exchange, Hezbollah pulls back 7 kilometers from the border, 4 miles away from the border. And that's much less than what Israel wanted. Either way, Hezbollah said, no, thank you. They turned it down. Moving on to the West Bank, after a counterterrorism operation in Tulkarem that lasted 45 hours, 400 explosive devices were found after the IDF says it searched 1,000 buildings, cleared the roads of mines. 4 terrorists were killed, 37 others were arrested. Now moving on to the Red Sea, the Houthis say that they will allow Chinese and Russian ships safe passage through the Red Sea. There's no surprise here. The Houthis have been attacking American and British ships. An American tanker was hit overnight. Now, as you know, the United States and the United Kingdom have been striking missile sites in western Yemen in response. But President Biden says even after five military strikes, the Houthis have not been stopped. And then here in Jerusalem, in Israel, breaking ranks with Prime Minister Netanyahu, War Cabinet Minister Gadi Eisenkot says that Israel should hold elections in the coming months in order to restore trust in its government. This was said weeks ago in a bombshell interview aired on Israeli TV, where he said that the Israeli public is being misled about the roadmap of what is next. Now, this interview was aired hours after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected the idea of holding elections, and also in a statement that really angered the White House, also rejected any idea for a two-state solution. We have live team coverage of every angle of the story. Let me bring in first Brigadier General Hanan Geffen. He's the former commander of the 8200 intelligence unit for the IDF. Thanks again for joining us, Hanan.
Good afternoon.
The Prime Minister's speech yesterday, he basically said that there would be no end to any of this, no two-state solution unless the security of Israel is safe. Now, what would you consider safe?
Well, we have to have a trusted authority on the other side of the border because the horrific scenes we have seen on 7th of October cannot be repeated. Now, just to remind you mentioned the Tulkarem, the operation of the 45 hours, that lasted 45 hours. Tulkarem is the distance of Netanya, a major central city of Israel, is about 10 miles. Now, imagine how exposed Israel is, and so we have to have a trusted partner on the other side. The Palestinian Authority neglected or failed to do so. We see the many strongholds that Hamas was available to produce or to have in the West Bank. The U.S. is aware of it. The American Authority, the administration is aware of the lack of this incompatibility of the Palestinian Authority, and they will probably, or hinted in the past, that they will see reform Palestinian Authority, meaning that they have more power, more control, more police. Now, the Prime Minister is aware of it. I believe that at the end there will be a Palestinian Authority of a different kind, a reformed one. Israel is not going to control Palestinian cities, not in the West Bank and neither in Gaza. The population has to be run by somebody else. It will not be an international force. Nobody will enter it, and if it will probably fail. So it will have to be a kind of reformed Palestinian entity led by the U.S. The U.S. aware of it. I believe U.S. and the European forces will work to try to present a kind of a different Palestinian entity that might be that Israel will accept or try to for time to see if it's work.
Right, but Hanan, maybe this is very naive, right? But let me bring up an idea that I think a lot of the people who are not viewers of I-24 News or people who don't really understand the Middle East, they think that if there's a statehood, if there's an actual state of Palestine that is created, much the two-state solution, that the Palestinians, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, any of the other 15 brigades that are there will lay down their arms and say, we got what we wanted, we're not doing this anymore, that's it. So what is the truth?
Well, you know, I was the commander of the Unit 200 in 1994 when the Oslo Agreement started. And there was a Yasser Arafat coming up. We are going to the solution, the two-state solution. And then within few months, few weeks, explosion began in the central cities of Israel. And since then, nothing has changed. They believe, I don't believe there's a consensus within the Arab and the Palestinians to the two-state solution. They will agree for two-state solution, but it will be part of what they call a phase that they have to go through in order to achieve a Palestinian state and annihilate Israel. It's called the strategy of phases. They have a very detailed plan to do so. So we cannot start with this kind of solution unless there is really strong points that will convince the Israeli government, the Israeli public, that this time it will be different. If we're not going to see the massacres, huge massacre we suffered in the mid-90s and the 2000s and until the mid-2000s, year 2000. So this is the problem that we are facing, and the naivety will be to say, okay, let's go to the two-state solution. It will be nice in the newspaper, very bad in reality.
You know, let's talk about the fact naivete and what people are getting from their media. They're getting a lot of propaganda. So I want to bring us back to our top story. The IDF says that they eliminated the head of Palestinian Islamic Jihad propaganda. Hanan, I'm going to have you hold on one second because I-24 News has live coverage. Ariel Osron is in Sderot. Ariel, so the IDF says that this man was responsible for the psychological warfare videos, but Palestinian media is calling him a journalist.
Indeed, Albert, in the statement issued a few hours ago by the IDF announcing a joint statement with the Shin Bet announcing the elimination of Wael Abu Fanuna, the deputy head of Palestinian Islamic Jihad's propaganda unit, the unit that was responsible for all the psychological warfare videos of rocket launches to Israel, but also of Israeli hostages held by PIJ's operatives in Gaza. And so he was eliminated yesterday, and Palestinians saying that Abu Fanuna was indeed not mentioning the fact that he was such a senior operative in Palestinian Islamic Jihad, but identifying him as the CEO of El Quds El Yaum TV channel based in Gaza, basically claiming that he was a journalist. Now, this is not the first case of a Palestinian Islamic Jihad or Hamas operative that have been identified in Gaza as regular civilians and journalists, in fact, but indeed were official members and operatives of Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The latest example from last week, Hamza Dakhdouh, son of Wael Dakhdouh, the Al Jazeera Gaza bureau chief, he was killed in an Israeli airstrike similar to Wael Abu Fanuna yesterday. Dakhdouh was identified by the IDF in official PIJ documentation that Dakhdouh was a member of its ranks. And so with Hamas claiming and Palestinians claiming 120 journalists killed in Gaza by IDF forces, more than a handful of them were officially recognized and official members of terror groups in Gaza.
You know, Ariel, you're in Sderot. It's lunchtime here in Israel, and it's on the weekend already, but it looks rather busy where you are.
Indeed, I'm standing here in the southern entrance to the city of Sderot, the biggest city in the area surrounding the border with the Gaza Strip. And I'll let our cameraman Daniel Lanzus give a better image as to what you're seeing. This is unusual scenes. This is the checkpoint in the southern entrance to Sderot, and I have not seen these many cars, so much activity on the streets of Sderot since October 7th, since the atrocities that were committed here and in the area, as well as the IDF evacuation order. The evacuation order still is in place, but indeed people are feeling a little bit safer, but also this wartime fatigue is affecting everyone, including obviously the locals here in Sderot, that many of them have come here to carry out their Friday afternoon preparations for the Shabbat. But indeed, the most activity that we have seen in Sderot since the start of the war, an indication that people are starting to feel a little bit safer to return. All the while, rockets continue. 3 hours ago, a barrage of rockets towards the kibbutz Nachal Oz in the area. The war in Gaza continuing, but the situation here on the ground in Sderot ever changing.
Great. All right, also joining us live from Sderot in southern Israel. Thanks so much again for joining us. Let me go back to Brigadier General Hanan Geffen, the former commander of the 8200 intelligence unit. You saw what where Ariel was in Sderot, people coming back. Should they all be sleeping with one eye open? It seems as though even the rockets are still continuing in that area of the country.
Yeah, people are sitting now 3 months in hotels, and they have to look after the business, the whereabouts, the houses. But it's not returning. They're not returning to Sderot yet. I was a part of a team that escorted Sderot people before 7th of October, and I have many contact with them. They will not return unless there is a full guarantee that what happened in 7th of October, rockets and invasion, will not occur again. The nightmare they are suffering is still very strong. And it will take some time before we will see real returning of people to Sderot.
But this is what the prime minister was basically talking about, in the sense that he didn't want anything to derail the idea of Israel continuing on its march in Gaza to make sure that the southern part of Israel is safe. So the question I have is whether or not there's this false sense of security by those in the south returning back. There's some sort of false sense of security, or is it what Ariel mentioned about war fatigue?
It might be war fatigue. It might be a special occasion there. I don't know, but it's certainly not people returning to their homes, not yet. It will take, because every rocket that we fire, they were used to rockets for 10 years before that, but now they will not hear. They don't want to hear anything with rockets or trying to go to shelters with 15 seconds of time. They are not there, certainly not there.
Great. Brigadier General Hanan Geffen, thank you so much again for joining us. The Brigadier General was the former commander of the 8200 intelligence unit for the IDF. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, there are 7 fronts that Israel is fighting, 7 of them. And one of those fronts in this war is with the Houthis in the Red Sea. Egypt is hosting talks with the Houthis and with Iran itself, trying to bring down tensions in the Red Sea. Yost Sheffers is joining me now from Cairo. Yost, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Why are the Egyptians holding this?
The Egyptians are very split, actually. You can say that they're sandwiched between, on one hand, they want to support the Palestinians, and among the Egyptians, there's wide support of the rockets coming from the Houthis towards Israel, towards the ships which are crossing the Suez Canal or going through Israel as a sign of support to actually disrupt the economy and try to disrupt what is going on in Israel. However, at the same time, for Egypt as a country, its political leadership, the ships, which are the targets of the Houthis, are crossing through the Suez Canal. And Egypt, which is in a dire economical situation, really needs those income from the tolls, those income for the revenues from the ships crossing through the Suez Canal. And so far, this disruption has cost Egypt around 150 million USD, which is not too much in a 400 billion economy, but it will add up. And as I said, Egypt is already in their economical crisis and really in look for any kind of foreign currency. So they really need this hard currency, this USD coming in from ships passing through the Suez Canal. So it's in Egypt's interests, actually, if the Houthis will stop with their bombardment, with their firing of rockets towards ships heading towards the Suez Canal.
Right. So, Joost, this is bad for business. I mean, look what happened when the Evergreen was caught in the Suez Canal. You remember it was stuck for many days, weeks, and ships had to go all the way around the Horn of the Cape Horn to go the southern part of Africa to come back across the side. I mean, that's bad for business for Egypt.
That is incredibly bad for business in Egypt, and it brought up here many memories as well to, indeed, as you mentioned, the Evergreen ship, which was stuck, paralyzed in the Suez Canal, and it took actually days in order to free the ship, and there was a whole pile of ships on both sides that had to wait before they could cross through the Suez Canal. So, yes, from an economical perspective, Egypt really needs the Suez Canal, and they really need the ships to have a safe passage through. And it's not only Egypt, and as you mentioned already, Egypt has been in touch with the Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs in order to solve this. They have talks with the Houthis. But Egypt is also being pressured by China in this regard. China has voiced their concerns because this is disruptive to their economy as well. And China wants those ships to continue to sail with their goods towards Europe, towards other parts of the world through the Suez Canal. So Egypt is also getting pressure from China and other countries in order to solve this case and to talk with the Houthis in order to make them stop the rocket firing. And there are chances that this is going to work out. Egypt has, in earlier stages, brokered hostage deals between Hamas and Israel. And in that regard, they have a good reputation.
Right, but here's the case, Joost, if I may, yes. Joost, here's the case where the Houthis don't really listen to anybody. I mean, like they've had 5 military strikes by the UK and the US against them. Didn't stop anything. They're still firing missiles. Right? Egypt could pressure the Chinese. They're letting the Chinese, by the way, our viewers should know, they're letting the Chinese ships and the Russian ships pass through perfectly fine without a problem. So what's the incentive? It doesn't seem to be an incentive. I mean, if there's any pressure Egypt could put onto China and to Russia to say, hey, guys, let down, it's really Iran that they need to be fighting and need to be telling Iran, you guys, China and Russia need to kind of pull everyone back.
It is Iran as well, exactly as you said. That's a very good point. And Egypt has already, in the earlier stages of this war between Hamas and Israel, the Egyptian Minister of Foreign Affairs already had several talks with the Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs, and those talks are continuing, and especially in this regard. And as you said, like the UK and the US have been bombing Houthi targets within Yemen, but targeting Houthi targets in Yemen has been done by the Saudi Arabia for decades under Mohammed bin Salman. They fought an air war. They have been bombing Yemen like with an insane amount of bombs, and that did not stop the Houthis. So bombardments are not going to stop the Houthis in this case. And even if they let the Russian and the Chinese ships pass through, this will still have consequences. And analysts are also saying that even the Houthis themselves are being caught by surprise, as in how big the worldwide reaction is to their actions, because from all the countries which are trying to intervene or trying to calm down the war between Israel and Hamas, so far the Houthis have seemed to make the biggest impact and get the whole world involved in this by targeting those ships. So definitely there can be influence on them.
Final question, Joost, in terms of the people on the street in Cairo, you're there, you're in Cairo. What are the people on the street saying? We've seen walls that have been built up between here and on the Philadelphia crossing that's bordering with Gaza. We see that the economy is tanking. We see that they're not letting ships through. So what are the people on the street saying, and what pressure are they getting? What pressure is the Egyptian government getting from people on the street?
Yeah, well, Egypt doesn't allow any protest in support of Palestine. However, the word on the street is that everyone is super pro-Palestine, and they call it a genocide. They call it another Nakba. They don't want to have any Palestinian refugees within the Egyptian territory in order to not, as they say, give Gaza Strip away to the Israelis. However, that's the word on the street. If you look at the talk shows, if you look at the government perspective, they try to calm down that a little bit. But yeah, for the average Egyptian, they use social media. They see images of children which are being killed. They see images of houses which are being bombed, and that's the main image that they get from the war within the Gaza Strip, and that make them extremely anti-Israel. And for the average Egyptian on the street, they don't care that much about the economy or the ships passing through and what so on. And for Egypt itself, like on the political level, it's mainly about keeping the border closed and make sure that Palestinian refugees don't enter Egyptian territory in high numbers.
Great. Journalist Joost Scheffer is joining us live now from Cairo, Egypt. Thanks so much for joining us, Joost. I'm Albert Lewitton at the I-24 News headquarters in Tel Aviv. Welcome to our viewers around the world. It is a busy Friday, January the 19th, 2024, day 105 of the war. We're going to start with the South. The IDF says they found the executive producer of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the one responsible for hostage videos and psychological warfare videos, and canceled him. It hasn't stopped the propaganda, though. There's also been another casualty in the IDF, another soldier killed in action, Staff Sergeant Ori Gerbi, 20 years old, from Herzliya. The IDF death toll is now at 194. Move now to the north. We're getting word just into I-24 that a Hezbollah drone was shot down over the Mediterranean just off the coast of Akko. This comes as Lebanese media report that the IDF has hit some 10 targets in South Lebanon this morning, and Hezbollah has rejected an American plan to pull back 7 kilometers away from the border. Moving now to another front in the West Bank. After a counterterrorism operation in Tulkarm that lasted 45 hours, 400 explosive devices were found after the IDF says it searched 1,000 buildings, cleared the roads of mines. 4 terrorists were killed, 37 others were arrested. And yet on another front, in the Red Sea, the Houthis say they will allow Chinese and Russian ships safe passage through the Red Sea. There's no surprise there. An American tanker was hit by a Houthi missile this morning. America and Britain have been striking missile sites in the western Yemen in response, but President Biden says even after 5 military strikes, the Houthis have not been stopped. And now we move here to Jerusalem. Breaking ranks with Prime Minister Netanyahu, War Cabinet Minister Gadi Eisenkot says that Israel should hold elections in the coming months in order for the public to restore trust in its government. Now, this was said weeks ago in a bombshell interview that was aired last night here in Israeli TV, where he said the Israeli public is being misled about the roadmap of what's next. This interview was aired hours after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected the idea of holding elections, and in a statement that has angered the White House, also rejected any idea of a 2-state solution.